What danga jibindin kadu samba jang samba de jibisi tala lutu sewa taba dribi lanje rajin ten la boba jeje da tamu tala taba tuni lunga zwa te jibi ta ni je te jibi ta dala dunga de kunyu gona samba de la junyu gona samba ni na ne da dunga de kunyu gona samba ru cha ta yo la junyu gona samba o ten marba ya.
Excuse me. So once again, we're looking at Lama Tsongkhapa's great treatise on the stage of the path to enlightenment, and specifically the section that it has a major heading, which is training the mind in the stage of the path shared in common with beings of medium capacity. And in that section, we can break it down into four categories. First, the mental training. Second, the measure of one's determination to be free, or the measure of renunciation. The third category, which is dispelling misconceptions. And then a fourth category of ascertaining the nature of the path that leads to liberation, or leading to liberation. So that first category, where we find the mental training, we break that down into two categories: the identification of the mind intent on liberation, or the identification of renunciation, and then the next category, which is the method for developing the mind intent on liberation, the method for realizing renunciation, the desire to definitely emerge. That's the literal translation, definitely emerge. So it's the desire to definitely emerge from cyclic existence. So that second category is the method for developing that. So in that second category, the method, there are two major headings. First, reflection on suffering and its origin, and then reflection from the viewpoint of the 12 links of dependent origination. So we've completed the first section, reflection on suffering and its origin, and now we're in that section called reflection from the viewpoint of the 12 links of dependent origination. And if you look in English, that's on page 315 is where the 12 links begin.
What the Yona Juyu gonna song about the what the Larry Chimajana, what the Neja, Shishi, 248.
Good.
Neba Tata Tandua, Neba Yola Juyu gonna samba la je, Yonagi Ewa, Yonagi Doa, Setala Duba, and then Tadaki, Dundu, Sajishin Dua. Jignan, that number Yonagi Ewa Telote, then the Yola Juyu trading, but
this.
Nari Chimbo, Neja, Jeju Shiji, Tata,
Nietzsche,
Neba, then the Yola Juyu gonna samba with the Marba.
We should go. Nipa Denjo. Okay. Rasam.
What the Sajid Ma Rose Shujana?
So now, when we look at the section, reflection from the viewpoint of the 12 links of dependent arisings, there are four categories that we find. First, the division into 12 factors. Second, abbreviated classification of the factors. Third, the number of lifetimes required to complete all the factors. And number four, how their significance is summarized. So it begins with the first category of the divisions into the 12 factors. Dixon.
Oh, Jetta Tombo Yonlaki Yoa. And then Yonlaki Yoa to Kuzu Inchang dancer or Inchang Wudu. That Tombo Terendo, Tombo Tenjaba, Taka Tema. Then they allow you to the Sanjik Suma Marve, Sanjik, then they allow you to Tina, and the Gumbas of Guijo Lutele, Jaguares, and the Sanji Sheju to Jabazuji Budan, and the Enda and Jabba and the that Ruby in Bata, Jabba and Jabazuji, the nearby picture is Puna, on part Lanta Maran and Sanji Shun, Kungal nearby. Reach within the course one apart, Tendril Habatam, the one Kara Gagres, Sanji should do what the tender and La Junigi, she taught the train of Patans. What the Jabut shall learn to Jabut, what the Tuba Garaches against Jerva. Then La Junin Lusantan and Saint Gil Yabajane, Sonico Papares Avares. aya chasaris o denise duar mada.
So the 12 links of dependent origination are the Sipi Korlo Sanjay Song, the Dendel La Junyi.
Dendel La Junyi, the Sipi Korlo.
Okay. So the 12 links of dependent origination were taught by Lord Buddha, and we see the depiction of the teaching that Buddha gave in the wheel of existence, or the picture called the wheel of life or wheel of existence, where we have those 12 links. So there's a story in previous times when Lord Buddha was present, where there were two people, Dzogchen Rinpoche and King Indayana, and they were friends. They were two friends, and the King Indayana used to give very just wonderful gifts to Dzogchen Rinpoche all of the time, just wonderful gifts. And Dzogchen Rinpoche wanted to repay him in some way, but he didn't have the funds, wasn't able in a material sense to give the same kind of gifts to King Indayana as King Indayana was able to give to him. So he went to Lord Buddha and asked what he could do. And Lord Buddha said, give him a picture of the wheel of existence. And at this point in time, the Buddha had taught to put these pictures of the wheel of existence on the backs of doors in temples, or in monasteries or temples. So Dzogchen Rinpoche then made this picture of the wheel of existence and then gave it to King Indayana as a gift. So then King Indayana opened this and was very curious what it was, and then began to look at these 12 links as they were pictured, and then was able to, in one evening, because of the reference to this picture, achieve the state of superior, the state of Arya, independence upon studying and looking at this wheel of existence, where there's the depiction of the 12 links and so forth. So we find this story during the time of Lord Buddha Shakyamuni. Digsun Rinpoche. So the first among the 12 factors is ignorance.
Zawa dan denchi ki ngenda jubi matun shula sheba taras jun dan demba se ad marbe example the jun sheba ina the maris jun sheba ina ana the maris demba shea juro dembi chi dan jubi chi ni de dabres example mandi mara jun su je example marbe
True words.
Sheba taras matuma mari bate Maribaya, Niebu Jubi, Reba Gazantan, Telegembas on the Majis, Toma Mariba Zadege, and Mariba entered the Niebu Dame to be Shero, and Shero Legembas on the Sagamares, Ribing and that Jubi, Matun Shosos, Ribing and that Jubi Matun Shosos. 다가데 와데 토마 마리바스가 나랑온 주바는 제바딘 바르다 나랑온 주바는 제바제 네 나데메 투블로다 와데니 메바질라 menzedan ongeres 나데바 마루바투 셰블로데게 나데바 주베 덴진 너는도로 example 타바드 마임베시블로데게 타바드지 줄로는 로든다 베이사 마르베 마리메도 존수진 워든다 부송데이사
Wrong, Drupa Zimba. The Metun Show Gare.
Not on Drupa Zimba. Not a Ramon Drupa Zimba, the near Tony to share.
Okay, two channels.
Not the Mama to share.
Okay, two channels. Okay, so we begin with the first among the factors, which is ignorance. So it says, we find first a quote from the Treasury of Knowledge, which was written by Master Vasubandhu. It's called the Abhidharma Kosha in Sanskrit. So it says, it gives an example of what ignorance is like first within this quote. So it says, ignorance is like animosity and falsehood. Animosity and falsehood neither refer to the absence of friendship and truth, nor to what is different from these two, rather to the classes of phenomena that are directly antithetical to and incompatible with friendship and truth. So what it's saying here is that just like animosity and falsehood, so for instance, animosity doesn't refer to the absence of friendship. It refers to something very specifically contradictory to friendship, kind of like an opponent in a sense, or incompatible with friendship. And falsehood referring to lying. This is incompatible with true words. So it's actively not speaking true words, actively not having friendship. So this is how ignorance is. It's actively not thinking in a way which is compatible with the truth. It contradicts the truth. So then it goes on to speak of that. It says, likewise, ignorance also refers neither to what is other than this, but to the classes of phenomena that are directly antithetical to and incompatible with cognition. Mistaken cognition is the grasping at the I as being inherently existent. So this grasping at the I as being inherently existent only can be negated by the wisdom realizing emptiness. So the mistaken view that grasps at the I as being inherently existent is incompatible with cognition because it's mistaken. Correct cognition is a recognition of the selflessness of the I, the selflessness of person. So this grasping at the I as being inherently existent, grasping at the I as being truly established, is an active misapprehension, and it's an active misapprehension that is incompatible with the truth, incompatible with non-mistaken cognition, which recognizes selflessness. So this is what ignorance is speaking of. So it's not something which is the absence of this wisdom. It's a direct kind of opponent to, or almost the direct opposite. I think that's a good way. The direct opposite of what correct cognition is, which is incorrect. So that's what the meaning of this is. And I just want to make sure, this is a little complicated, so I just want to make sure I got everything. So the wisdom realizing selflessness, or the wisdom realizing emptiness, is the antidote to that grasping at the I as being inherently existent. It's the opponent to, and it's the opposite of it. So that's the wisdom realizing emptiness is what is compatible because it's correct cognition. So that's what is meant there. So the directly antithetical or direct opposite of what is cognition, which is a mistaken cognition. Correct cognition, which is mistaken cognition. Dig some, Che.
Yes, well. Oh, Jetta, then what they have been under you, Matushu was at the Tombo Jetala. Never rebuy, never rebuy, Ripane, Yantabi, Yantaba, Gonzaga, that may be 20 by Yimbes, and Gonzaga, that not on to the Nepo, not the Mamaruba to be. Ne Shirot Leja Urus, and get that you be Gonzaga. and Dadun Zibi, what a never ribayang, Kaza, Dame be 20 by Imbes, the Kaza Dame to Luti, Timutu to Kaza than 0, Jita. And then Jita the radio not on Ruban Zimbi, Jita Woshi, Lubenchi Chujita Jiba was, Talube Chujita Jiba do a tombo and do a tombo. Tombo J. Tombo Niba to Niba.
Giant Sheba, Nipa.
Tombo what the Luben Chujita Jiba Niba J, Tome Kuchi Jiba somebody.
Sumba, okay.
Yeah.
In Jayan Sheba's outline, that first section we just went over is the first category. The second category deals with Dharmakirti's assertion, and then the third category deals with Asanga's assertions. This is how Jayan Sheba breaks this section down into three specific categories. So now we're entering into the second category where we find Dharmakirti's assertion. So when we look at the grasping at this I as being inherently existent, the antidote to it is this selflessness of persons, realizing selflessness of persons. The mind, that awareness that realizes the selflessness of person. So it'll go on to say this here. Regarding this, the great scholar Dharmakirti asserts that here the remedy, cognition, is the cognition of the real, the meaning of the selflessness of person. So here the opposite is the realization of the selflessness of person. And that's what is meant by cognition, the opposite of that which is incompatible with cognition. So what's incompatible with cognition is I am inherently existent. What that's incompatible. Compatible with cognition is the recognition that the I, there is a selflessness of person, selflessness of the I. Dixon Rinpoche.
Niba to somebody to what the Niba de what the revision sense of a pechuji tabijibares, somebody longigenal sense of a tomekuchibares, what Niba somebody was the Rendua.
So the second category, when we look at it in terms of tenets, would be according to the tenet system of the mind-only school, tending towards the reason. And then the second category, Asanga school, would be the mind-only school according to scripture. There's just two different categories. One relying on logic or reason, and then the other category of scriptural, mind-only. Rinpoche, the Kanga Loma Soya.
Ah. That Tambu Debati, but then Marimada Junsu is what the Tambu Kudimba. Niba Della and Niebo Ribana Yantaba Kazak Dame to be 20 by Yimbe, Kazak Dame to Lotte Jaguro. Thing that you be Kazak Dadus the Vegeta was Metushu. Kazak Dame to Lutan, Kazak Dadus the Vegeta in what the Jagur, Suburban Chenmo, Chujitabi sauce, Revision Sansova. So, Tender Longi General Sansova or Tome Kuchi ne, and Yantabi Donla, Shijiluto, Zimbatan, Yantabi Donla, Mobatan Le. And Shema Jebes, to make which was the long general Sanson Batige, and I had a bit on La Shijilu about the Moba Nila Moba de Jagures Moba. Kazak Damela Moba. Moba la Jebe, Moba la Jete, Donna, Lobato Batan Matubelo Nile, Matubelos, Matubelo. Lotu Matubelo Nigana Matubelo Jagandus. When I tell you, you never do, Kanza Dame to be Shero Legiban Rausa. 간사가 단지 그냥부터 담에도 싫어 임바데 리비지는 사장 밥에 주지 잡아다 롱기지는 사장 밥 도매 고지기 집안이선 집어레스 라우스
So then it says, therefore, its antithesis is the reifying view of the perishing aggregate. So the opposite of this view of selflessness of person is the reifying view of the perishing aggregates. This reifying view is incompatible with cognition. Is incompatible with cognition. So then it says, along with this interpretation which sees ignorance as a misapprehension of the meaning of reality, there is a second view held by the scholar Asanga and his brother Vasubandhu, who assert that ignorance is merely confusion about the meaning of reality. In brief, they say that ignorance is a mind that does not know its object, but also that it is not a misconception. However, Dharmakirti on the one hand and Asanga and Vasubandhu on the other are alike in asserting that the wisdom that knows selflessness is the principal remedy of ignorance. So here, it's speaking of the differences that are found between the views of the two mind-only school. The mind-only tending towards reasoning and the mind-only school tending towards scripture. So it's showing that even though there are these slight differences between these two schools in terms of one seeing it as an actual misconception and then the other just seeing it as an unknowing, both schools agree that the wisdom that knows the selflessness of person is the antidote, is the remedy for ignorance. So they're in agreement when it comes to that specific point. But there are the more subtle points where they don't share that same view. So. Digson, check.
What that Tome Kuchik, what the Yantabitalo Moba Shijulo de Zebat, Moba Nil Mobile Jagares, Mobatala Ina Lendela Mumaribadan, Tekonanila Mumariba New Horace, Lendela Mumariba Onkel Lesane, Nasul Chigre, Tekonanil Mariba Lesan Dendrulja, what the Netu Horace?
Less so. So when we look at the word confusion, there are two types of confusion. So, and going back to those divisions of the mind-only school, it's the mind-only following reasoning and the mind-only following scripture. So those are the correct names for those two mind-only schools. The mind-only following reasoning is followed by Dharmakirti, and the mind-only following scripture is Vasubandhu and his half-brother Asanga. So just to correct some of the words there. So there are two types of confusion. One, confusion about karma and its results, and then two, confusion about the nature of reality or the meaning of reality. So Asanga in the Compendium of Knowledge divides it into these two.
Tasibi Golodo, the Jiki de Shadiji, Druji, and the Papaji Somarbe, Shatagan de Shatung over there, Drew the Condro. On the Shaji, Papa de Tumuson, the Shashadan Tumuson, the Onke, Nicole Kuat, or the Chungu, Chiki, or the Jigu Marbe. Then the Tadele, then the Laju, Tomariba, the Chiki de Le, and then Nasun to Draken Commando the Kenji, then to Dragon the Andro Kenji Marbe. Good little Haji, which you as what the Shaitan, what the Jigu is.
So when we look at the wheel of existence, in the center we see three animals that are symbolic of the three poisons. We see a chicken, which is symbolic of attachment, and we see then a snake, which is symbolic of anger, and then we see ignorance. And then we see a pig, which is symbolic of ignorance. So these three animals represent the three poisons. And then so we find that attachment is what begins the whole process. And then we find at the top, kind of in line with the attachment, kind of in line with the chicken, we find the first among the 12 links, which is ignorance. So based on ignorance, the whole process begins. And then there are also depictions of those who are involved with virtuous actions going to the higher realms, and those involved with non-virtuous actions who are going to the lower realms. So we see all these 12 links, and then the 3 poisons in the center, and the various other symbolisms in the picture or painting of the 12 wheel of existence. So the first among the 12 links is ignorance, and we see a picture of a person who's blind.
Niban duji te yang ngandu pembe shibe sono maibe le dan dendu pembe le sos ne shima la ni te de khanji dendu pembe le dan khan kongi ne dendu pembe meyu le ni sos to niban duji le do de toma maribe kuno la niban duji ge le dan magi le tout ça ne what the ladle gile the magileni or the marba dujigale katu the what the zamazu the gichego zama sai plate cup the zuta zakeji trigores.
Okay. The logo. NGK.
On Niban duji las. Niban duji ne le in las. Niban duji the what the Yuna Junior the Niban duji le jaguars. Niba chuba le in no saturday. They are Nandu Pambi, Sono Maybe Ledan, later la Sono Maybe Ledan, Sono Gile Mayu Leson your mother, or the Sono Maybe Ledan, the Sono Gile. Sono Maybe Ledan as one pagile, Sono Gile, Debbie Latam pagile, Mayu let Kankumi, Zume pagile in Bare. Pambi Les was what did you learn? Jana.
So we finished then the section on ignorance, which is the first of the links, and we see the picture of the blind man. And then the next of the 12 links is compositional activity. And here there's a picture of someone making things, making cups, making plates, someone who's working, making something. I'll read. Compositional activity is karma. There are two kinds of karma: non-meritorious karma, which impels miserable rebirths, and meritorious karma, which impels happy births. The latter is further divided into two types: meritorious karma, which impels happy births to the desire realm, and invariable karma, which impels happy rebirths in the higher deities realms. So there are actually three kinds of karma that are presented there: meritorious karma, non-meritorious karma, and invariable karma, immutable karma. Non-meritorious karma causes lower realm rebirth. Meritorious karma causes higher realm rebirth within the higher realm rebirth in the desire realm, and then invariable karma. The muile zudanzume nika.
Zuzume nikal muile.
Okay, and then invariable karma. So let me just make sure it's correct. So non-meritorious karma causes rebirth in the lower realms. Meritorious karma causes rebirth in the higher realms of the desire realm. And then invariable karma or immutable karma causes rebirth in the form and formless realms. So that's what is meant in this section by that, and we find again the depiction of someone making things.
Ewa de Dundupan Karsugure. Dundupanjig Ledan, Gandupanjig Sugurabata, Sona Maibi Ledan, and Sona Gileta, Mayu Leson Yuaris.
Then Jayan Sheba, the Ewa Gare, the Nipa.
On Niba do later on Monta Yuva, Monta Yuva.
Okay, nature.
Monta layings at the Mon, later More, Monta or Lelija Ures, Le Gilia the Magile said that you are the Son Yuaris.
So, okay.
Sona Maibi, Sona Mayule.
So John breaks this down into two categories. The first category is the nature of compositional activity, and then the second category is the divisions of compositional activity. So the first category, the nature of compositional activity, is karma. And so it says compositional activity is karma. So that is its nature, that's what it is. And then the second category, which is divisions, are the three: meritorious karma, non-meritorious karma, and invariable or immutable karma. So Jayan Sheba breaks it down into those two categories: nature and division. Sometimes nature is translated as definition. So.
This one.
And then consciousness also has two categories, the same way that the compositional activity did: nature or definition and divisions. So we find a monkey in number 3 in consciousness in the picture.
Ne megi nabashiba, nai nabashiba, nai nabashiba, chi nabashiba, Watakatu Ngore, Megi nabashiba, so Watakatu Ngoje, Tene Nabashiba, two, the Ngota, Yawani less, Ngon and Dole Satre, Nabashiba, Tutu Sat, Dole, Nashi Tutu, Son Jans, Dole, Nabashiba, Tutu, Nashi Tutu. Nabashiba, Megi Nabashiba, Nai Nabashiba, Chi Nabashiba, Luji Nabashiba, Iji Nabashiba, Tutu. Sanzamba Jena, Nashi Tuji, Kujitan Yuni Jana, Ji Jagarwa. Tanda Nazude, what the much what the Nashi Tutu, Nashi Tutu, Megi Nashi, Nai Nashi, Tai Nashi, Iji Nabashiba, Padungate, Nashi Tutu said the Monteren.
That's it.
Nabashiban, two the Lago, the Yuanile, Tomben to Lesadre.
The Dumba Dan Jepa, the Sensampa, the Gonji Dan Nyomon, Ale Nyomon.
Nui, Kujinashi, the Nui Nashi, Sazaba, the Rajuba Kaji with the Nashi in the Bajan do. True J Marve. Nashi 2G killing and true killing with it.
Sensampa Dan Uma Ranju?
Sazaba, the Oma Rajuba Kaji with it.
Ale Namang Junla Ranju. Okay. So consciousness is number 3. So again, definition or nature and divisions. In the sutras, the Buddha speaks about the 6 types of consciousness. Nonetheless, here the principal consciousness is the fundamental consciousness, according to those who assert that such a consciousness exists, or the mental consciousness, according to those who do not assert this. So Rinpoche will probably read through all of it. But the first, which is nature, or definition, is the 6 types of consciousness: eye consciousness, ear consciousness, nose consciousness, tongue consciousness, body consciousness or tactile consciousness, and mental consciousness. So these are the 6 types of consciousness that are the meaning. The ngo, the ewa dru,
Ewa dru ngo kaduredisha. Nashi won't show us and the Nashi Sutul Nashi Lagres. Make Nashi nine.
Ewa show?
Each Nabashiba, truth chujens,
Then
Mondre.
Ewa show Sena?
Ewa Sanarwa.
And the Lama
mo da yewa ni le se dambu nan do le se dre da ni ba yewa ro ni ba yewa la
Ale, Jew, sen, Jew.
Judu ji na she dan, redu ji na she. Gi le le ya judu ji na she dan, redu ji na she, magi le le ya judu na she ni ja ge do.
Okay. So then the divisions refer to the consciousness of the causal period and the consciousness of the resultant period. So we'll get into that. So there are 6 types of consciousness, but according to the mind-only school and some middle way autonomy school members, there are 8 types of consciousness. So in addition to those 6, they add afflicted mind and storehouse consciousness, or mind basis of all it's translated as, or fundamental consciousness, I think they use in this textbook. So it's translated a bunch of different ways, but the mind-only school and some of the middle way autonomy, and I think I mistranslated this possibly a few weeks ago because I thought I misheard it, that the autonomists had those 8 and that some of them did, so I didn't translate it. But I guess some of the autonomists also hold this 8 layers, the divisions of consciousness view. So again, the afflicted mind and storehouse consciousness being the 7 and 8.
Ta somba na she chu chu che, ta yewa de wa de gi le sa ne somba na she ge de pa cha ja ma de ba. Pa cha ja. Pa cha je bu ko na she de ju du ji na she res. So the
two divisions, when we speak of these 2 divisions, I forgot one thing from before. There are causal and resultant period for virtuous and non-virtuous karma. That was it. So then, for instance, the consciousness of the causal period would be where the imprints are being created. So the consciousness that is creating the imprints for future experience, and the consciousness of the effect period is the consciousness that is present when the result of those predispositions or imprints come to fruition. So that is the meaning of those 2. Dixon.
What nashi to do what the so good kill batana, Kunji in la Kimala batana, easy nashi so. They are Le Magawa and Rebu Dungaji, Dungan Yu, Mobine, Magi, Lengoban Dushins, Tom Maribal Tena, Magi Les Agres, Lesula, Ti Basha Gubitse, Cindy Nashine. Judu nashi sos niban duje le basha jaza nashi de judu nashi des nashi inshins de la tene maumba na ne ngandu chene so ni sanje nashi de judu nashi des ane dendro le te jibaro ni yores nashi nabra sheba o te jindo da mebe te konani la mobi onage da mebe te konani to maribo onage ane dendru na jang yang taba dunghewa teta mashiba dewa zong yi suna dang meyu le subi te jina she ne judu dang pacha jabe kos judu na she res tala tene deba jewa lemba dang zu dang zu me kang koma jewa lemba koso ane jedu jina she ja wu res tala tene deba dang kang komi dendru nye sanje na she ne jedu jewos what about what the somba sandra.
So number 3, so I'll just read the excuse me, the whole thing again. In the sutras, the Buddha speaks about the 6 types of consciousness, so that's the first. Nonetheless, here the principal consciousness is the fundamental consciousness, according to those who assert that such a consciousness exists, or the mental consciousness, according to those who do not assert this. Further, you become entangled in and accumulate non-virtuous karma through your ignorance of the fact that the suffering of pain arises from non-virtue. These latent karmic propensities infuse your consciousness. So this is the period where the imprinting is taking place. The consciousness of the lifetime in which this happens is the consciousness of the causal period, while that which enters the birthplace in a miserable realm in the future and in dependence on the causal period consciousness is the consciousness of the effect period. So when the results of those imprints are being experienced, that's the consciousness of the effect period. The actual creation of those propensities is the consciousness of the causal period. Digsum Rinpoche. And that completes number 3, Rinpoche said. Number 4 is Okay, so name and form is number 4. In the pictures, we find a boat. In the 12 links of dependent origination pictures in the Wheel of Existence, there's a boat. And in Jayan Sheva's commentary, there are no divisions for this section.
Tangaba and Jeba Mezula and Min so Su Pombo, Duji Pombo, Duji Pombo, Nabashi Pombo, Jet le Meji Pombo Lagres, Nabasheba de Zuje Maybe Pombo Jet, Pombo Naganone, Zuje Zumaybe, Pombo Jet le Meji Pombo Lagres, Pombo Jewosa Zune Zume to Chenas. Zume Chesona Zuyo Maroda and Zuji Sabmans on Yuji, Zumelas, Zumen Zuyo Mares. Television because on a Momobula Sube Zujeribar Jarosa. Then Tando becomes Chibis what I mean to Momo Tatabo Mamunjunu or what did Kakaja Ures one said.
Yeah, I'm a troll. You the Angelina?
Tajaba Mezu no, the ancient Malun who's a Lagundo. Jeba Mezula,
the Chiron Ami Trogo.
Main and Soa down to shit on Nabashabat. Zuma Imbe, Pombojet, Meji Pombo Lagres, Zuji Maimbe Pombo Jos, Meji Pombo.
Listen.
Zune Zumet Jena, Zumet Jena, Zune Zumet Jena. Zuji Sabin Zamatu, Neba Zamatu, and Neba Zam Yuji, Zumela, Zumen Zumede, Ne Zumekano, Zumekan is the Kuzu. Television because was Zumekan Maimbitan, Debala Subata Jase, Television because I mean to Gunola, Momo Tatabo, Kotat Momjunu, Marve, Lasube, Zu Jeriba, Jaros, Nezugenda, Momo Jayores.
Mambo Kutra, don't it?
I mean, Drew, no, Pami Kutra, and do you know what the Bukucha, no, the Chenrezig, what the shade, Marve?
Ah, Gunga Mepachi. Yeah. So number 4, name and form. Name is the 4 of the 5 aggregates that are non-physical: feeling, discrimination, compositional factors, and consciousness. As for the 5th aggregate, form, if you are reborn in a formless realm, you have no actual form, only the seed of form. Thus, the form in the term name and form applies to any form, such as fertilized ovum, that is appropriate to any situation other than the formless realm. Here, why do we say that there is no form aggregate in the formless realm? Because it's formless realm. That's the answer. Because it's a realm without form. Therefore, since it's a realm without form, there's only this seed present, but there's not actually the form itself. So this word seed is like the potential that for it, but not form itself, because that realm doesn't have form. So that's what the reason for this. And then it's saying that even the fertilized egg, when the parents' substances come together, at that point, that and at that point where there's conception, according to the text, at that point where there's conception, that's form right there. That's the form and the name and form part. So that's what is meant in number 4, and that completes that section. Rinpoche, the
Okay.
So we'll take a short break. Camera's on, right, Ted? That's it. So now we're on number 5. We've completed name and form, so we're on the 6 sources. That's it. Okay. So in number 5, when we look at Jayan Sheva's commentary, he divides it into 2 categories. The first category is it's kind of like essence or nature, and then the second category is doubt that could arise. So these are the first 2 categories in Jayan Sheva's commentary, about the 6 sources, number 5 of the 12 links.
Tambo Nashi Shubi Kutaka Momopotan Momopota Kutani Ami Jugunole Momopotan Mina Payus Mina Pay Mina Pay Mila Subi Jishi Jitesa Tamu Kutaji then Kalikale and Mila Subi Jishi Jitungres Luta Ije Iji Jishene, Luchishene, Iji Jishene, Mumbum Pituna Yotosa, Luchidan, Iji Jishene, Mumu Pituna Yoto, Luchisena, the Lumarbe, Zoo, Iji Iji Nabashibat Marbe, Luchis, Luzuda, Iji Jishene, Mumu Pitus Yoto, Kuranin Dune, Mumu Tambu Tusuyores.
Lessa.
Jude Jenane, Nisanja Tsena, Ambu Chichatu, Trubi, Jimba the Dabu Melas, Jujina, and then Pumunga Chishat Trungre, and then Mambo Data Bukali, Range Trumares, Jesu Ambu na Chichatu Trubi, Jimba the Dabu Melas. Gonji dan Jueshili Jena Gonga li Jewa dan, Jueshili Jena ne, Nge Matuba Jen Tatan, Dawa Sayu Gonji li She Dosa, Gonga li Jewa dan Jueshili Jewa ne, Nge Ji Matubi, Ne Jen Tatan Dabu Sayu Gonji li Song Dosa, Sayu Gonji, Lupin Papa Tume, Sayu Gonji li Song Dosa.
If you are born from a womb, so number 5, the 6 sources, if you are born from a womb, 4 sources, the eyes, ears, nose, and tongue, are formed through the further development of name, that is consciousness, and the oblong mass of the fertilized ovum into which consciousness initially enters. The physical and mental sources, however, exist from the time of the fertilized ovum, the time of name and form. So at the time of name and form, when the parents' substances come together, and then the consciousness, then there's conception. And therefore, since there's conception, there's consciousness. At that time, it's saying that the physical, meaning just that, all those physical sources, and the mental sources, the mental consciousness sources, exist at the time that those 2 substances come together. So it's saying that those sources, even though this is number 5, while number 4, name and form, once name and form is there, then these mental and physical sources are as well.
So number 5,
the 6 sources, in the picture of the wheel of existence, we find the picture of a house.
공안을 지나 예수 내제 주제 공제 송요 말바
Oh, I forgot to read more, sorry. If you are born spontaneously, there are no such stages, since your sources form simultaneously with you entering rebirth. However, for those born from eggs or those born from moisture, the explanation is similar to the explanation of those born from a womb, with the exception of the word womb. This is explained in the levels of yogic deeds. So this is presented in Master Asanga's text, level of yogic deeds. Dixon, go ahead, maybe check on
Yeah, ngaba jeje langmo do tuje ni je. Ngo do de je. To ba job dot. To ba job do wotere. To ba job do wote. To ba job la ni ngo da yo. Toba jobala ina ngota yewa nije ngota watere ngota tere toba jobu ngota
Conche
tatana zume tatana zu jobana leje ngotu lasa zu judu leje ngotu bares chichi judusuna leje chabatu bares leje chabatu ba yimbe ane longsheba bu juba wos longsheba bu juba wos o teba dole ngai tuje sa diresha tuje jung do diresha me juba na le jung la che juba na le chaba jube le jung juba wos wote tuje jung je tena kanji dojo do dere jeje zojen an zomen me dos jeje zojen at zomen me yo maris jeje zojen at shwe zomen me zo imbeser zo in zomen me charo what dojo ni do ni dojo ngo da ane kanji dojo ni dojo ngo dere tada na me zo joba na le ngo jo la jeje joba na na leji chaba juba yinbe longshe juba wo sote dojo jungo dereja jeje zojen an zomen me do sote kanji dojo sote jeje zojen an de zomen yo mares zomen me zo yinbe zo zomen mo chao do marba.
So in the doubting section, there's a nature of doubt, and then there's a kanji, and the doubt about sources. So these are the two categories in a doubt section. So we have first the in the six sources the big ngapa
ngaba jeje la ngo dan dojo ni le
okay
ngaba jeje la ngo dojo ni dojo la ane dojo ngo dan kanji dojo ni le
lapsa lasa.
Okay.
So then this being the case, once name and form are established, you have an actual body. When the six sources are established, the experiencer has been created because the particulars of the body have been formed. So here it's saying that once the fourth name and form are established, there's an actual body there. And it says that once those sources are there, there's an experiencer. So this is the first part. It says because the particulars of the body have been formed. And then the second part, it says the five physical sources do not exist in the formless realm. Why do they not exist in the formless realm? Because physical, there's form, and there's no form in a formless realm. So this is the second point that's made. Doubt's kind of a strange word to use, but it's almost like a clarification of a question, something like that. That word that we always use doubt for, it's really almost like a clarification of something that would come up when we think about this. But you can't really translate it. One word is that. So there's these two categories. First, once the six sources are there, the body's established, and then second, there is no physical source in the formless realm because physical is form. Khensur Rinpoche.
O Jitatane,
Rupa.
Truba Riba Dluate, and not o Jedigan Chigu water, Truba Riba.
Lessa.
Washiba Chigures.
So number 6 is contact. And in the picture, in the wheel of existence, we find two people embracing.
That Truba Ribasana, you want Nashi Sun Dune, you eat Omu, Pamasun Yonsu Chebate, Chichi Truki Chenji, She Sunbe, Yu Dan Nashi Jan, Chumba Yino, Swate, Truba Riba Drendoa, Truba Ribasana. You want Nashi Sun Duce the Marbe, that means she Zu Tumba in a Yu de Zumarbe. Make on Buji, Zuji, Tamatachi, Sunduba Latene, make it Nashi Chum Marbe. Make on Buji, the mill Zul Tagu Tamatachi. Then Zu Sundu Duba Latene, make it Nashi Chum Marbe. And Draje, Nayo Ombuji, Dragin Eguin of Tamatachi, Sun Latene. Nine Nashi Changuro. Tenaji, Sheba Trunga Chen Sun Latene, Chigumarba, Miki Navasheba, Hai Navasheba, Chi Navasheba, Luchi Navasheba, Hiji Navasheba, Truga, Chen Sun Latene, Chiba Sungu Marba. You want Nashi Suns.
So, number 6 is contact. Then Ewa Yurbe, Ripa.
Truba Riba, Ewas Mishi Timadu. Truba Riba, Worship and Rasa Worship.
Okay, so there's no divisions in the commentary on contact. It just says that there's a picture of people embracing. So there isn't any more than that. So when we look at how things are perceived, so for instance, we look at the eye consciousness observing a form. In order for an eye consciousness to observe a form, there has to be the eye consciousness, a form, an eye sense power that's powering the eye consciousness to apprehend it in an observed object condition. I think Dhammadakchen, observed object condition. Let me just check that. Have to be present in order.
That's the Miki Nashi Jogala Jen Sun Subala Ten Chagures, Miki Nashi Jedule, Yuzu, Miki Ombo, Zul Taguina with Tamataji, Sun Subala Tene, Miki Nashi Chungures, Yuan Nashi Sun. Yuan Nashi Sun Dubala Tene, Miki Navasheba Jigare, Yuan Nashi Sun Dubala Tene, Nai Navasheba, Sheba Truga, what the Sun Dubala Ten Chigres, Yuan Nashi Sun Duba, what the inside.
So in order for any of the apprehension to take place, whether it's the eye consciousness apprehending a form or the ear consciousness apprehending a sound, in order for this to take place, there has to be these things present. There has to be the consciousness itself. There has to be the I think it's observed object condition, and there also has to be the actual sense power, the eye sense power, or the ear in the case of hearing. So these things have to be present in order for there to be apprehension. And the same thing applies to all of the other consciousnesses and what they apprehend. In order for the apprehension to take place, there have to be these things present.
Tangasu Miki Navasheba Jebala Yuzu, Miki Ombo, Zul Taguina with Tamataji, Sun Subala, Dune, Miki Nashi Chegurova, the Nashi Shuba Truga, Navasheba Truga, Yuan Nashi Sun Dubala Ten Chegurova, with the Jun de Shegurova. There's no Cheniba to get Cheniba to Carlo on the Taji Dota.
So, according to Buddhism, in any type of apprehension, there have to be these things present. There have to be an object that one is perceiving. There has to be the sense power, and there has to be the consciousness. And this word demadachen that I'm having trouble with at this moment, observed object condition. So this is what we state as Buddhists, but we're not sure. We'd have to look into what science would state creates apprehension, and compare the two and see. So this is according to Buddhism, not according to science.
So
when it would be interesting to say, to look into what science would say about, for instance, the eye consciousness itself, if they would posit such a thing or not. So it'd be interesting to find out whether there is this presentation in science. So we have to see. Does science state that there's some kind of eye consciousness or not? Rinpoche, the demadachen, the kandreche, the da, the demadachen, the da. They indicate the Sikh the JSON, the dictionary.
Zul ta gunya sang lu jue marbe. Tenge zul chita gunya sang lu juro te tamata chen zul gi meshin halu tamata to. Halu tamata to shon yu jian yin sang tamata chen.
So I'm trying to find this demadachen. So there has to be, in order for Rinpoche is saying, in order for there to be consciousness, and maybe it's called the immediately preceding condition, I just have to find it. In order for there to be this eye consciousness that is powered by an eye sense power, there has to be a thought to perceive. So I think that's the immediately preceding condition. So we have to, Rinpoche is saying, we have to see what the scientific view is. This is according to the Buddhist view. We have to look and see what science has to say about that. Digson.
What does it do about this?
It'd be so much easier if it was like English. You could just look it up. There's so there's a lot of people here who understand science. Does anybody know from a scientific perspective if science asserts any kind of eye consciousness or not? Was anybody here? Rinpoche is posing a question to anybody who may or may not know. Does anybody know of such a presentation in science?
Miki naba sheba so de gelas shegu namu shegu gelas rabaje miki naba sheba anna de ko soa dan de je to ngalo de shegu le bichin da mo mo yo marba na she to je de kodle siri ki cha mo yo da miki na she de kodle ane nyu yu soa on soa du je semba. So in the eye consciousness apprehends, it's almost like glasses. It's like something that's seeing something. And when this apprehension takes place, there are these other omnipresent factors that are present. So this picture is then producing all of these other things. It's producing feeling and discrimination and intention and so forth. So this is how we say consciousness works. Da, de, da, chen. Found da, ken. 다 조바 리바 노데 라리 치면 된도 어디 그 이시도 마지 루네 안 들리시 잖아 조바 리바네 요한나시 손뒤네 요한나시 손뒤네 유 이동모 바마 손수 쥐바데스 요한나시 손뒤발라데네 유 이동모 바마 손 네 쥐바들라 그래서 다 가데 이동와 두바 여바 마이나 대샤 여바 칼란조 모두 여바 마이나 셰당 여바 칼란조 같은 것도 도슬레도 모두에 쥐바데 지치 주기 젠지 지치 주기 젠지시 송베네 유다 나시장 선바예노스 지치 주기 젠지 송 유다 나시 선바예노스 유주라 소바다 and then Nashila so to call Chun Temperes. Ancient Majulun, she Jana.
So then, Zutona, mi Namasheba gu, mi Wambo gu, Demadachen.
Tangasu number number. Number go what the Migi Nabasheba, Migi Nabasheba could Soa and Dushi Samba, Yelashi Vijabanga, sitting Ayuares, Gundunga. What the Sukalo. Number Jung Siguro, Senibas Tajagan Domu,
so it is called the immediately preceding condition. So it's the consciousness, I consciousness, and I sense power, immediately preceding condition. And the immediately preceding condition is the perception just preceding the actual understanding of an object. And then there has to be an object, which is perceived. So that's the question Rinpoche was posing. The science say there's an I consciousness, an I sense power, an immediately preceding condition, and the object which is apprehended. So it's Buddhism saying that whenever this is taking place, whenever there is apprehension or perception, whether it's an ear hearing something or tasting something, there's always this present. And also, whenever this is going on, there is always what is called the omnipresent mental factors, and when we divide those up, we divide them into 5 different categories. So it's feeling, discrimination, intention, feeling, discrimination, intention, and there's 2 others. I'll find them in a moment, but those are always present whenever there is an apprehension. So there's almost like there is this consciousness that Rinpoche is serving like a glass. I just want to retranslate this in a better way. Glasses, and then it's getting this information that's coming back, and these omnipresent mental factors are then getting all kinds of information from that experience. So let me just read through this, and then I'll get back to what I'm doing here in a second. So when we read this, it says, when sensory object, sensory faculty, and consciousness come together, you distinguish 3 types of objects: attractive, unattractive, and neutral. The passage where a sutra says caused by the 6 sources refers to sensory objects as well as consciousness. So this is very similar to what we've gone over in the past, where we went over that if there is the desirous, if there is not the desire, that which is desired, there's not attachment. If there is not that which is not desired or undesirous, there is not anger. So it's very similar to what's being presented here, is this distinguish when things that are found to be attractive, one becomes attached to, and things that are found to be unattractive, one becomes angry at or has kind of animosity towards. So it's very similar in the sense that to what we find in that root wisdom text about the reaction to various types of objects. And then omnipresent mental factors are the feeling, discrimination, intention, contact, and mental engagement. So those are the 5 things that are always present when there is an apprehension of an object. So we have, again, a consciousness, a sense power that's powering it, an object itself, and then the immediately preceding condition. So it would be immediately preceding condition, sense power consciousness, observing an object. Okay, Subuldu Rinpoche, Golden Rinpoche. So in number 7, feeling, there's only a very little amount there.
What the tomato Rebi use on Jeba son do you don't want.
Okay.
You don't want the more son marbe. Tell it then, so the water, doing it down, Daniel son Jim with this heavy billion, 7 billion, what to swing some marbe.
So number 7, corresponding to contact's discrimination of 3 types of objects, there occur 3 sorts of feelings: pleasant, painful, and neutral. So independence upon observing something attractive, there's a happy feeling or a pleasant feeling. Independence on observing something that's not attractive, there's a painful feeling. And then observing something neutral, there's kind of equanimity of feeling. So these are the 3 feelings that occur from the apprehension of the 3 types of objects. In number 7, in the picture of the wheel of existence, there's in the feeling, there's a picture of someone with an arrow through their eye. So the 3 types of feelings are happy feelings, or pleasant, painful feelings, or suffering feelings, literally, and feelings of equanimity. Equal or equanimity is the word Rinpoche is using. So whenever there are any of the 6 consciousnesses present, there also are the 5 omnipresent mental factors present. So the feeling, discrimination, intention, contact, and mental engagement are all present while that is present, while those 6 are present. Number 8, so 7 is finished, now we're on to number 8, craving.
Jeba siba dosha ron dosha. Dewa de kadu na shona nya be dosha. Dunga kadu na me na nya be what in dosha de yoris. Jeba siba.
Do the Yanjasuna?
Dewa nga su gabro da. Dewa maga ka yo marwa. Dewa de kadu na yo na nya be chaba je yoris. Dunga de kadu na me na nya be dosha wani de
less so. So when we look at grasping, this is speaking of attachment, being attached to that which makes us happy, and being attached to being free from that which does not make us happy. So this is the different types of grasping that we have.
Ne what the Jeba siba ne Chua de Walam Mandewa Tan, the what the Kadu Yuna Yuna be de Chatan, Dungan Kadu in Menanabe, de Chani Oris, Chu Siba Joa, Chu Chua Jeshebal Ten Siba Joa, Chu Siba Joa Somba ne. Mari bindu de rebi genji siba jejis mari ba mena chua yue zhang siba mejos risu zhangya ji doju so de risu zhangya ji doju otaka do ba ji jue do de yang.
This means both craving not to be separated from pleasant feelings and craving a separation from painful feelings. Oh, I misspoke. I called it grasping, I think. I meant craving, but it's attachment. This means both craving, not in number 8. I know what happened. We're on number 8, craving. This means both craving not to be separated from pleasant feelings and a craving, a separation from painful feelings. The statement in a sutra that craving is caused by feeling means that feelings accompanied by ignorance cause craving. Where there is no ignorance, craving does not occur, even if feelings are present. So what's being presented here is a doubt arises. There's a clarification that's being presented. I'll read just the rest through. This being the case, contact is the experiencing of the object, and feeling is the experience of birth or fruition of karma. Hence, when these two are complete, experience is complete, there are 3 types of craving, one for each of the 3 realms. Speak so much.
What that Chujenji Seba Jawa, Chujenji Seba Jawa Somba ne, that Chujenji Seba Sonsa Mongoyo, da Chujenji Seba. Choala tenden de shachi de sonsa mongoyo da. Then what the Mariba mena ya choala tenden de shachi mena ya dobal hewo da. Jermis what the dobat chue de marbe. Chujenji Seba Jawa Somba nes, Chujenji Seba Jawa Somba ne, Choa Zang la tenen and de shachi de sewo maridas. Jawa Somba ne. Mari bin du de Ribi Jensis, Toma Maribi Kunalande, and Choala Dene, what the Sibat Jaguar Madu, Mariba Mena, Choa Yuejan, Siba Majos. Dajum was the Toa you are the Siba Jagumud was, what the Tobajud Marba.
So it says this means both feeling not to be separated from pleasant feelings and craving a separation from pleasant feelings. The statement in a sutra that craving is caused by feeling means that feelings are accompanied by ignorance cause craving. Where there is no ignorance, craving does not occur, even if feelings are present. So here we're looking at the case of a foe destroyer, an arhat. Because even though the feeling is present, there isn't any attachment to the feeling because there isn't any ignorance to cause the attachment to the feeling. So this is a clarification of what craving is caused by feeling means, because then one could think, well, a foe destroyer feels, so does a foe destroyer crave? And it's clarified, meaning that the ignorance has to be present for the craving to exist, for one to crave the feeling. Khensur Rinpoche.
Tadana riba ne yuji longshu dan, riba ne yuji longshu dan, Choa ne, Jawa han nami ji longshu yinbes, ne teni yong zuba na longshu zuba yinos. Tadana riba ne luji yuji longshu, riba de yuji longshu de la yuji longshu dan, nami ji longshu ni yuares, riba de yuji longshu res, Choa de nami ji longshu res, longshu yinbe. Riba dan yu khaza Choa ni zu sona, ne longshu zuba yinos. O te batulo te she te sha.
This being the case, contact is the experiencing of the object, and feeling is the experiencing of birth or fruition of karma. Hence, when these two are complete, experience is complete. Sum.
Jeba siba le na song yuares. Somba de pin de cha. Zujin de cha, zume de cha.
Oh, okay. That's so. And it says there are 3 types of craving, one for each of the 3 realms. Craving the desire realm, craving the form realm, and craving the formless realm.
Ta guba lemba marbe, guba lemba was
The pargare.
Guba lemba.
Nama, the sipa.
Jeba siba chantong.
A picture of craving, there's someone drinking alcohol in the wheel of existence.
Jeba siba jirwa. Ta dene what guba lemba marbe, guba lemba. Guba lemba do what Guba lemba de ndo sha guba lemba ne yu yu naba jela dunshin chaba jetes yu naba jela dunshin chaba jetes zu da te ro rejala maybe chaba jete ja gores da zu da la soba de bin de dans ne de ba ni wala ba te tin serba ni ba ji da la sobi ta nga ba na ta ni wala ba当然当这与出境当对于那把呢，出境当对于出那把那把，你除了到了dun心，差别那把那把那把，现在到那把那把当，出境当对于那把那把啥，大对那把那把我是那把都没不讲的啊，可是这种。
Je.
我的当不你吧，当不你吧，送吧几十吧，那把没得办，我吧。我的个来路了的。
当你现在的头发的。
他过把两把多，看见多下，过把两啊，过把两把人多下也强制的。
爬个人。
啊，过把两把多的嘞，过把两把是的。
The picture of a monkey grabbing a fruit. So grasping, you'll see a picture of a monkey grabbing fruit. So grasping refers to yearning after an attachment to four types of objects. So you're yearning after forms, sounds, smells, tastes, feelings. So yearning after those things, and the four types of those things are holding on to what you want, yearning after and attaching to the sensuous forms and sounds, for example, to bad views, excluding the reifying view of the perishing aggregates, to ethical discipline associated with bad views and bad conduct, and to the view of the perishing aggregates, holding on to views, holding on to ethical discipline and conduct, and holding on to assertions that there is a self. So four types. Dixon. The NGK je yene tambo ni yure jisudawa dan. Okay, so Rinpoche is saying in the Tibetan it looks like there's five because it's broken up. It says holding on to what you want, yearning after, attaching to sensuous forms and sounds, for example, to bad views, and then to ethical discipline associated with bad views and bad conduct, and to the view of the perishing aggregates. Looks like somehow it's broken up. Same words though, holding on to views, holding on to ethical discipline and conduct, and holding on to assertions that there is a self. So in this section there's nature and then divisions. And so the nature is the picture of a monkey grabbing for a fruit, attachment. If it's a grasping, it's necessarily attachment. Okay, so Jisudawa. Jita. So first in the Tibetan, Rinpoche is saying the reifying view of the perishing aggregates, Jita. Nipa? Dingayure.
Zudra la so tawa nyawa lemba tambre.
Zudra la zopa.
Zudra la so
Tambo. Nipa?
Goba lemba ne yu ji lan du ji chaba jete de ta Zudra la so be de dansa what the tambre me de Zudra la so ba Zudra la so bin de dans nyawa lemba tambre ji ni ba Jita matubi tawa ngaba na ta nyawa lemba ta nge tan ji chuji ta tuju ngaba nyawa lemba jisu la tawa lan dunshin chabin de ba nyawa lemba tawa nyawa lemba 추진 당 뒤주 녀와래 봐. 어때?
Kensabudu.
아.
Quand c'est de pays de j'ai tenez. Quand pays Tabiare.
Goba lemba nasero, goba lemba ro.
251.
Goba lemba.
Goba lemba. Goba lemba ne.
Goba lemba la ni ngo da. Ane ngo da yewa ni je. Ngo ne zhu xin du lan de je.
So.
Ni ba yewa nes de da zu zha la su ba. Ta ni ba yewa de zu zha la su ba de ma yong gu du wa. Ni ba yewa ne sa. Ni ba yewa ne.
Yo namba je la dun. Yo namba
je te wo de ngo de ro ngo. Ta de da zu zha la su ba. De ta ji je. Ni su la ta la su ba, ta nga ba na. Nya wa la ba ni je. Ni ba. Song ba ma ba song ba. Ta nga dan ji chu jin dan du yu. Nya wa la ba. Ji su la du xin cha bin de ba nya wa la ba. Nga ba. Ta wa nya wa la ba. Chu jin dan du yu nya wa la ba.
The chanka jana gatsi yere.
La ba sa.
Ni.
Da dum ha wa nya wa la ba de mo du ta.
Je. So Rinpoche is saying there's even more. If you really break this up, it says.
Ta chu zhang ha jia de da zu zhe la su bin de da ji je.
Okay, so holding on to what you want, yearning after and attaching to sensuous forms and sounds.
Ji da la su bi ta nga ba na da ni je.
Second is, for example, to bad views, excluding the reifying view of the perishing aggregates.
Song ba da nga da ji chu jin da du yu nga ba da je de ba.
Ethical discipline associated with bad views and bad conduct.
Ta je ba ji su la ta xin du cha bi de ba nya wa la ba.
Then
Nga ba
the view of the perishing aggregates.
Zhu ba chu jin da du yu nya wa la ba.
Holding on to views, then holding on to ethical discipline and conduct.
Dun ba da zo ta wa nya wa la ba. Dun do dun.
Holding on to assertions that there is a self. So if you break it down, there's actually 7 there. Rinpoche said, if you count all the different categories that are actually presented, there's 7. Number 10, potential karma goyere.
Ama bugu je ayo kenchi chigo res.
Pogo J, Chogo Chenmo.
Bugu yo kenchi.
Okay, Chogo Chenmo. Okay, so here, potential existence, we find the picture of a woman who is holding a child, who has a in her stomach womb.
Nyeba jadun ro, jadun. Juba sibi lesa de sibi logo ya jusen. Nyeba julan jebi mingi tabo. Juba sibi lesa de julan jebi mingi. Juba sibi le du kual kuy juro. So
potential existence is referring to that which causes cyclic existence. The NGK logo. The NGK logo. In the past, compositional activity infused your consciousness with a latent propensity, and when nurtured by craving and grasping, became a power to bring forth a subsequent existence. Existence is a case of calling a cause, an activated propensity by the name of its effects, a subsequent rebirth. Juchi? Jewa.
Ta juji ba tero de juji ba ji ngo ne boji ba amal boji de ken do tri gores.
Amal bogo, got it?
Children born.
Okay, so in number 11 there's a picture of a child being born.
What did ta?
Birth refers to consciousness initially entering one or another of the 4 types of rebirth. Juni?
Juji ba la ji ngo boji wanda sa. Ta de Ledam Holanda Dude Joa Son Les Dude Joa Son Le the Lady Joas and the Joa de la Lewangi Joa, Monajongi Joa, Dude Joa Son Nona, and then the Near to Joa. You want to see the shade there is it?
So when we look at the types of birth, there's birth from egg, birth from womb, and miraculous birth. Here we're speaking that when we talk about the birth in the picture, we're speaking of birth from a womb. Aging and death is number 12 when we find a picture of a corpse.
Toma Mariba, Jeba Siba Kuba Lamba Sunt Yomoje, Toma Jeba Gunyomo, Niba Juba, Niba Duji Letan, Juba Civil Ladies, Leju Kununi, Tanyomo Bukunyu, Son Jenga, Kunu de Bangandua, Kunu de Bangaje, Dungendaba, Du
Ni, Sun, Je, Na, Drew,
Toma Jeba Gunyomo. Kunyu de Banga Marbe, Tombo, Jeba Gunyomo, Toma Mariba, Jeba Siba Goba Levas of Yomoje, Niba Juba Lenos, Niba Nujigla, the Juba, Sibi Leni the ladies, Leni Tan Yomo, so the Naro, Na. Tene Narwa, Naje, Tene
Dun
Hamadun Dungelos. Hamadun Dunga,
Nipa,
Soma Nashi, Jeba Mezu, Naba Jichi, Truba Reba, Truba Reba, Jujiba Jawa, Juniba Gashi Chiriba, what the Redo.
Okay, so when we look at the 12 links of dependent origination and we compare them to truth of suffering and origin of suffering, we can say that 7 of the links are the truth of suffering and 5 of the links are origin of suffering. So we find a quote from the text that says, the 1st, the 8th, and the 9th are afflictions, the 2nd and the 10th are karma. So these make up for a number of 5 and fall categorically under the truth of origin. So truth of origin would be ignorance, craving, grasping, compositional activity, and potential existence. The truth of suffering, there are 7 different categories. So the truth of suffering refers to the compositional activity, consciousness, name and form, the 6 sources, contact, feeling, and birth and aging and death. So these are all the truth of suffering. So those make for a total of the 12 links, 5 of which are suffering, origin, and 7 are suffering.
Then don't have a tempo, then the Gunu Pabi tempo, so what the Taman Machis one. Then you're not Juni Gunishin with the Dunga, but the Gunu, there was Jishi Jibashi with somebody. You're not Juni, so don't get about the Gunu, there was Jishi. Don't get about the Gunu, there was Jishi, my Imbata. The name of La Junior, the end of a Kazu do you? Gunu de Kazu, Nayu. Nare Marba, Naje.
So we say that the 12 links of dependent origination are an expanded way of looking at the truth of suffering and truth of origin. But is it really? We could say no, it isn't, because it is just about the truth of suffering and truth of origin, because there are 7 of the links that are the truth of suffering, and there are 5 of the links that are the truth of origin. So it's merely an explanation of truth of suffering and origin, one could say.
What religion or the Dinagua? That don't end about the Gunu about what the then what the Dunga about the Gunu about the Musun imagine go to his dance on the does it don't know the Kabacham.
So it becomes very difficult if we were to want to compare the truth of suffering and the truth of origin. If we were to say among the two, the truth of suffering and the truth of origin, are there 3 permutations, 4 permutations? Are they mutually exclusive, or are they synonymous? When we have to do that, it becomes quite difficult.
kunju debi seni raju kunju debala ju kunju deba kunju debi seni kunju deba donga debal muso majin ga de chabakare tan so na mo tan yo
so when we were at, when we look at the truth of suffering, Rinpoche defined them very fast from how they define them in the monastery. The truth of suffering and the truth of origin. Bitseni kabiyare.
Pashin yer pashin. Pashin shenin oluyor. Denji katu diyor da pashin shenin denji katu
Okay, so in the general meaning of perfection, we find this. He said we'll get it later, but in the general meaning of perfection, we find the definitions of the truth of suffering and the truth of origin. And then we have to take those definitions and look at, in order to be able to compare truth of suffering and origin, to see if there's 3 possibilities, 4 possibilities, mutually exclusive or synonymous, we have to know how they're defined. And once you do, there's a large amount of debate that takes place in the monastery around these topics and around these topics. So we'll do Nyawab. I don't have the definition. So we'll do the concluding mandala offering and dedication prayer. Because of being the root or the passenger of suffering, is the truth of origin, the passenger of suffering. Because it is empty of a pure self, it's difficult. I'll find it another time. I have the text at home, so I can look it up. So concluding mandala offering and dedication prayer. It's a word here. The fundamental ground is scented with incense and strewn with flowers, adorned with Mount Meru, the 4 continents, the sun and the moon. I imagine this as a Buddha land and offer it. May all sentient beings enjoy this pure realm. I dedicate whatever virtues I have collected for the benefit of the teachings and of all sentient beings, and in particular for the essential teachings of Venerable Losang Drapa to shine forever. I send forth this jeweled mandala to you, precious Guru. I dedicate all this virtue to emulate the knowledge of the hero Manjushri and likewise Samantabhadra as well. With whatever dedication is praised as supreme by all the conquerors who traverse the 3 times, I also dedicate all my roots of virtue for the sake of auspicious deeds. In that pure land surrounded by snowy mountains, you are the source of all happiness, all powerful, Avalokiteshvara, Tenzin Gyatso, may you stay until samsara's end. I pray for the long life of the precious Khensur Wandak, upholder of scriptural and realizational doctrines, spiritual friend who trained extensively in the 5 great philosophical texts with exceptional wisdom and perseverance. Tuji Rinpoche, Gucci Shapi Denrolo.